I know there have been dozens and dozens of YouTube videos already explaining suicide masteries, but I've been using suicide masteries for a little over a year now, and I want to give my thoughts. Also, shout out to the best MCOC YouTuber out there. Where is he? Right there, Jason. I think he's the best. So before I get into suicide masteries, I want to explain why I decided to do suicides in the first place. This is my roster about a year ago. As you can see, 6-star Corvus Glaive, Omega Red, Red Hulk, all great champions with suicides. Domino, because she can shrug off bleeds for the power. And Hulk, poison immune. Also, I have a few other champs that are bleed immune, poison immune, or can shrug off debuffs quickly, as you can see. There's Rogue, Hyperion, Captain Marvel, Luke Cage, Emma Frost. And from that point on, I decided to rank up champs that are good with suicides. If you're going to do suicides, you need the willpower mastery and maybe the bleed resistance mastery too. Suicide masteries means you're going to have a poison and bleed on you every single fight in exchange for attack increase. Also, recoil will damage you after you use a special attack. These are my favorite champs that go well with suicides. And these champs on this list are not in any particular order or ranked in any way. Starting with Captain Marvel, she has two different ways to counter suicide masteries. First, she's poison immune. Second, her awakened ability gives her an indestructible charge. Now this indestructible can take care of the bleed debuff, and also the indestructible counters recoil after a special attack. So after a special attack, she will take no damage from recoil as long as her indestructible is active. Right here you can see after the special 2, the recoil damage, we're still at 86% health, no damage was taken. And the special 1, still at 86% health, no damage after recoil. Next champ I want to talk about, Captain Marvel has a synergy with him, and that's Nick Fury. Now Nick Fury has this synergy with the Deadpools that can purify all debuffs at the start of the fight. It works with every champ except Nick Fury though, so I guess with this energy, you can make any champion decent with suicide mastery. Next, I want to talk about Ghost, who is just about perfect with suicide masteries. When she phases, she's immune to bleed and poison, and she turns those debuffs into a fury. So she uses suicide mastery as an advantage. She turns a negative, the debuffs, into a positive, which is fury. Also, she has this amazing synergy with the Hood. Now, when she phases, she's immune to all damage, which also includes recoil damage. So after a special attack, if you phase right at the perfect time, you won't take any recoil damage. So right at the start of the fight, when I dash back and phase, you can see both those debuffs turn into 2 furies. There is a small difference between the awakened version of Ghost and the unawakened. My 6-star Ghost is not awakened, so right at the start of the fight, I have to dash backwards to phase. But an awakened Ghost, she starts the fight already phased, so she will shrug off those debuffs and turn it into fury right at the start. So right here, I want to show off the taking no damage from the recoil. Right after special 2, if you dash back right away, you'll phase. As you can see, recoil did no damage. We're still at 100% health. I wanted to show real quick what happens after a special 1 with the recoil. Now right after a special 1, you have those 3 charges, and you have to use those by hitting the opponent before you can phase again. So special 1, you're unable to use the no damage synergy with Hood. Another special 2, we're at 95% health. And right after, if I phase, perfect, we're still at 95% health, no recoil damage. Only recoil damage we took from this fight was from the special 1, which I said earlier you can't phase anyways after the special 1, so. Next, I want to talk about Corvus Glaive. He is the reason why I'm using suicides in the first place. I got him as a 6-star, took him to rank 2, awakened him, and I saw all over everywhere that he benefits a lot from having suicides. I figured this because, well, he has the bleed immunity, and also the majority of his damage comes from the special 2, so you're not using the special 1 a whole lot. Also, when you're using Corvus, usually you're not worried about recoil damage because 1, with the bleed immunity, the bleed debuff is still there, so you can heal from willpower after any special attacks. And 2, using the special 2, usually the fight is over, just like that. Now I want to talk about Apocalypse. Apocalypse works well with suicides in a couple different ways. 1, he's able to gain bleed immunity, and that immunity follows him throughout the rest of the quest for all the rest of the fights. Second, if your Apocalypse is awakened, unlike mine, then you can get a little extra regeneration in between fights. Next, I want to talk about his Horseman of Apocalypse ability. Any horseman gains 100% bleed resistance. Horsemen also gain a prowess, so hopefully throughout the fights, you're not using too many special attacks because your special attack damage is boosted by 50%. So overall, Apocalypse is a great suicide champion because he's good with suicides himself, and he makes other champions good with suicides too. Next champion I want to talk about is my very first 5-star rank 5 back in the day, Domino. Now, I discovered Domino's bleed ability by accident. Back in the day when I was still pretty sucky at this game, I wasn't paying attention and I chose the bleed path in Alliance War, and she shrugged off the bleed, and I had no idea how. And that's when I learned, holy crap, she has a 50% chance to shrug off bleeds, and she turns it into power. And when using Domino, you're not worried about recoil damage because the majority of her damage comes from the heavy attacks if you have the Red Hulk and the Massacre synergy. And also her special attacks, you're usually using the special 2 or more likely the special 3 for that crazy critical bleed damage. Speaking of Domino, the next champ I wanted to talk about is Red Hulk. Now, Red Hulk goes good with suicides because technically he's not immune to poison, but he converts poison into heat charges. And that's a big thing I look for when I'm talking about champs that go great with suicides. They turn a negative, like the poison, into a positive. Also, you can heal back any recoil damage from his special 2 regeneration. Next, I want to talk about the king of suicide masteries, Omega Red. Everyone knows Omega Red is great with suicides. Also, Colossus is good with suicides too, honorable mention, and they have a great synergy together. Once again, like I was talking about earlier, taking a negative and turning it into a positive. So with the bleed from suicides, he turns that into a death field right at the start of the fight. You don't have to wait till a special 2 for the death field to be active. Usually how it goes is, as soon as the bleed expires from the suicides, you have enough power by that point to activate another death field with the special 2. Also, he's poison immune. Start of the fight, poison is gone already, and the bleed automatically activates death field. So you can keep a constant 30 death spores on the opponent really fast. And see, by the time the first death field expires, you can activate another one with the special 2 almost right away. Next champion on the list I want to talk about is the recently buffed Magneto. Now, after his buff, Magneto is arguably one of the best champs in the game, and he is without a doubt one of the best champs when fighting metal champions. But with suicide masteries, he's really good because he takes 90% less damage from bleeds. Also, the majority of his damage comes from the special 3 after you've built up a couple dozen prowess. You can also use the special 2 for pretty decent damage, but you really want to use the special 3 every time you use Magneto, so you don't have to worry about recoil damage with this guy either. If Omega Red is the king of suicides, then I believe Black Widow Clairvoyant is the queen of suicides. She can switch between 3 different phases. All phases have a different immunity: bleed, poison, and incinerate. You start the fight automatically in the bleed immunity, then you can switch right over to the poison, and every time that she's immune to a certain debuff, she gains power. One thing that's great about her with suicide masteries is if you're taking some recoil damage and you're low on health, you can use a special one, and she has a lot of regeneration on that special one. I said it before, I'll say it again. She takes a negative, turns it into a positive. She takes those debuffs, she's immune to them, she turns it into power gain. I think this might be the last champ on my list, and this is Old Man Logan. And it's quite simple why he's on this list. He has 95% bleed potency reduction. Also, he has a pretty strong regeneration, so after a couple special attacks, he can just heal most of the damage back. Honorable mention time. Try to keep up because I'm gonna go fast. This video is already too long. Ronan, aka Other Hawkeye. He can purify the debuffs once you go in the right stance, and also most of his damage comes after using a special 3. Bam, done already. Lightning round, baby. Next is Elsa Bloodstone. If she has a bleeding debuff on her, she puts a degeneration on the opponent, turning a negative into a positive. Bam! Another lightning round. Moving on to another skill champion, Aegon. With tenacity, once he has enough hits, he can shrug off the debuffs, and if you just use the special 3 and get the really long stun, you don't have to worry about recoil damage. Only thing I wish Aeon had was a little regeneration, then he would be perfect. Moving on to the Monkey of Hits, Hit Monkey. He can purify the debuffs once he's in the correct stance. I forgot which stance it is, but I know it's on there. It's in the ability somewhere. He can purify the debuffs, and most of his damage comes from the special 2, so don't have to worry about recoil. Moving on to another champion. I told you, we're moving fast. Next champion, Killmonger. He can start out with almost a bar of power once you're running suicides. And with the right synergy, I believe it's Void and Sabretooth, he can shrug off those debuffs and turn it into regeneration. Moving on to Blade. Now for this, he needs to be awakened, but he has a really strong regeneration. Just gotta keep the opponent bleeding. He can turn that bleed into power, turn that power into regeneration. Now next up, it's kind of a category of its own, and that is double immune champions. Now obviously most double immune champions are good with suicides because the debuffs don't affect them. Just gotta watch out for their recoil damage. And these honorable mention robots and double immune champs I want to talk about: Guillotine 2099, Warlock, I have a 5-star and a 6-star, lucky me, Ultron, OG Ultron, and Age of Ultron. But it doesn't stop there. Next we got Nebula, and you got Sentinel. And then you got Darkhawk. I don't really ever use him, but he's pretty good. And you have Age of Ultron, Vision. Now, if you know how to Quake and Bake or Quake and Shake, you never need to use special attacks, don't have to worry about recoil damage. I mentioned him earlier in the video, but he gets a shout out again here too. Colossus has a great synergy with Omega Red and also Old Man Logan, and he's bleed immune. No time to stop, moving on, going to Magique. Now when she's in Limbo, she can heal all damage, including recoil damage. The OG Cosmic God, Hyperion. He's poison immune, and also he has a pretty nice regeneration. Going to my favorite champ in the game, Hulk Ragnarok. He's poison immune, and also he has a pretty good regeneration if you get the thumbs up. Going on to Wolverine. I am so grateful to have this guy as a 5-star maxed out. He has probably the best regeneration in the entire game. Never have to worry about recoil damage. Going to Sasquatch. I actually made a video on why he's good with suicide masteries. More rage you stack up, less damage he takes from all sources. Going to Bishop, he can purify bleeds, and also he has a decent regeneration. It's not great, but it's pretty decent. King Groot, he's bleed immune, and also his Furies can shrug off the poison. And also if you have him awakened, he has pretty decent regeneration too. Rogue has enhanced metabolism, so she can shrug off the bleed a lot faster, and also her special one has a decent regeneration. Mephisto, he's poison immune, and also he has a really good regeneration once you bring him down to 40 or 30% health, I can't remember. Emma Frost, at the start of the fight, when she's in crystal form, she's double immune. She's actually immune to almost all debuffs, and also most of her damage comes from a special 2. Ghost Rider, now when you're doing his rotation and you throw a special 1 and special 2, you can use a heavy attack and he has a crazy regeneration. X-23 Wolverine, the more power she has, the more regeneration she has, so you never really want to use a special attack. And that's it, I'm done. List is over, video over, I'm good, finally. Now, did I miss anybody? Am I wrong about any of these? Tell me how wrong I am. Tell me who I missed and who belongs on the best champions with suicide masteries. I worked kind of a long time on this video, so I hope I didn't miss anything. I hope that I didn't miss anybody, but definitely tell me if I did. Next video I'll probably do is champs that are not good with suicides, the worst champions to go with suicide masteries, and that'll probably take a little while to figure out too.